Right?
It's dangerous stuff, but there's an aspect in Kedusha.
Of Gashmias.
Yeah.
Of course, the whole Mishkan. Why do you have to go to the Mishkan?
Particularly the
Kruvim. So much of this, so much of this. And what did the Romans say when, was it the Babylonians, the Ketos? What did they say when the Babylonians, what did they say when they pulled the Kruvim out of the base of Mikdash? Oh, it's like the rest of us. What did they? There is this need of something tangible, which is somehow not only tolerated, but the Rambam famously tells us that, for Christians is good Christianity. It's good because this brought them away from other idols and brought them into a monotheistic place. So there's a shituf instead of an avodah zarah. So it's such an interesting, so good for them, not good for us. It's like an interesting thing. So we say Micha mocha bo'elim Hashem. So all of the Elohim acherim that we talk about even in Kriya Shema, and all of it's become so clear because Hashem wanted to leave Micha in the wall. He said he's like a Ben Sorah Morach, as I'll say. And Moshe Rabbeinu said, no, let's take him out, let's give the man a chance. It was Moshe Rabbeinu, let's give the kid a chance. The kid should have a chance, right? Give him the opportunities. And he says, okay, you'll see what will happen. What did Hashem say when they built the Egel on Har Sinai? Okay, Leichrei, Chata Abaza. Here's your kid. Here's your kid Micha, who stole the Shem Hashem, Shem HaMefarish from you, who now got everybody to build an Eicha. Here you go. He got the Erev Rav going. He got Shevet Dan going. So it's a unbelievable. I'm afraid to actually say the words, but I don't. Like we're all thinking about this, particularly in Eretz Yisrael. Like sometimes, you see practices which are like very frum practices, and they don't seem right. I mean, if you read Rashi on Ov Yidoni and all it seems like to fit in perfectly. Like what is going on here? So apparently, without judging that, and I'm sure that these are relative people that are careful with what they're doing. I'm not knocking it. That somebody just told me a story yesterday that it was a question of a shidduch. So there's a makupal that people go to in Tel Aviv, and if you show them the names of the names of the chassan and kala to be the idea, so he looks at the names and sees. So a lot of tzaddikim did that, by the way. Absolutely, Bob Trebbi all the time, looking at the names. It's good, it's not good, based on the names. I don't know. I wish I try to find somebody to teach me how to do that. Do you know how to?
No, but I have someone who does.
Oh, you know somebody who doesn't. You got a guy. Yeah. I asked them how do they do it. No, I've seen it and I've asked them. So what are you looking for? I guess I wait maybe a little longer. I asked Rabbi Yaacov Haber. He's like, I have no idea what they're doing.
I know somebody in Tveria who does it.
Okay, so yes. Somebody told me yesterday a story that they came and he looked at the name of the boy and he said, very nice, good, very good bacher. And he looked at the name of the girl and he says, whoa, you're Shemayim, he said, which was beautiful. And then he put the two pieces of paper together and he's no, it just doesn't feel right. And then he took the papers, this is exactly what happened. He took the papers and then he put this one on this side and this one on this side. It's a good shidduch.
Side of the bed you
meaning it wasn't at all clear who was chesed. I mean, I imagine it was who was chesed, who was gvura here, and normally maybe in a zachar in the cave, this should be chesed, this should be gvura. So, but if you turn it around, the whole thing works well. So I wish I had that gift.
What does Rabbi Hillel do?
It's not to help other people should do it, just find out who I am. I guess I don't even know.
If people ask Rabbi Hillel to check the names, he doesn't do it?
No. I can't speak for him, but he tells you to daven to Hashem.
Before Matan Torah, was Klal Yisrael was Har Malashituf? They would get her Sheva Mitzvahs?
That's a very good question. I know there's a long Chassam Sofer, which points out in Parshas Kisisa, which points out that the Egel at that point, he wants to know if the Egel Hazav, which was a Shituf, was that a steer to Anoich Hashem Alekach. Seder, Anoich Hashem Alekach. Nobody's being kaifer in Anoich Hashem Alekach. So it's a sugya l'yameinu, and it's a sugya of Mitzrayim, and it's a sugya of through Mitzrayim, and this is the Elohim Acherim that Hashem tells over and over again. Why are they going for this Elohim Acherim? Asher lo yadatem, lo yadu na'v'seichem. This is not the derech. This is not the way. And Moshe Rabbeinu was, So you have always throughout. Just to point this out in Chumash, throughout Sefer Shmos, you have reference, allusion to this. To this Pesel Micha, and on the other side, on the upper side, the very non-Gashmi side, to the Malach of Metatron, which we've talked about before, which is HaKadosh Baruch Hu saying, okay, I'm not going to take you out of Mitzrayim after the Egel. Shalachti Malachi lefanecha. The Ramban Zumatatron. There's this other force. So these are this kind of a metzias on the one hand, and a need to be able to be meshatif milamalo olamata HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and our derech is sof kol sof tamim tiyeh Hashem Elokecha and einon milvado. But the relevance of saying einon milvado is very, very important. So that's the background that we've discovered, and I don't know that it's completely resolved, except for. And we need to understand that the Gemara says that why isn't Micha considered the Rasha that Ein Lo Chelik L'Olam Haba? So the Gemara says, well, because he was a Machnas Orech. We asked the Kasha, it was a Machnas Orech, how is that a matcher to be Ovid Avodah Zarah?
Compare him to the people of stone. I mean, Avram lost the argument to save stone.
Very right. So, probably what the Gemara is saying is that somehow or another, in terms of Ein Lo Chelik L'Olam Haba, even though in this world, in the world of halacha, we say the end doesn't justify the means, but somehow or another, in this kind of like Izbicher thought over here, it's coming out good. L'maisa, he's a Machnas Orech. L'maisa, he's a Machnas Orech. So this is, as I said on Monday, this is for a mature audience, because we need to, we don't have to get mixed up with Pesel Micha, Baruch Hashem. You have to understand Einoid Muvadoi. That's the machshava that the Gemara tells us to have as Jews. But there's a history here. So here we're Tzadok, and let's just try to get through this paragraph for the third time. Matan Torah Nemar, let's do this one more time. Matan Torah Nemar Vayichan. By Matan Torah it says Vayichan. Rashi says famously, Shem the Mechilta, Kish Echad B'Leiv Echad, that there was a perfect Achdus standing at Har Sinai. Shehu Yichud Kol HaKnesset Yisrael. Tzadok said earlier that whenever there's many terms for the Jewish people, but whenever it says Knesset Yisrael, that particular term means Klal Yisrael fulfilling their mandate of taking the world which has started with Echad of Hashem, separated into the Sheishes Yemei Breishis, into the Alma de Piruda, and Klal Yisrael tying it all together on their bottom. We said the Netziv the other day of Yaakov Hevel Nachalosoi, tying together the strands of the rope on the bottom. Those of us that are busy tying together the Achdus, meaning keeping everything as individuals and it needs. I could be an individual, my wife's an individual, but we're tied together. So why we tied together? HaKadosh Baruch Hu ties us together. It ties together different groups and different Jews with different nations and different parts of the world. The whole Bria gets tied together on the bottom. That was Hashras Hashchina. That's Malchus. That's Malchus, when you could bring this whole thing that Hashem created, which is stranding out everywhere, and pull it together for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's beautiful. And that's the Malchus of Hashem. That's what took place at Har Sinai. So the Achdus, Vayichan Yisrael Neged Ahar of Matan Torah wasn't just about like Achdut, we shall overcome, but it was about the Tachlis of the Bria and Hashras Hashchina, of taking all of the disparate parts and bringing it together as one. That's the Vayichan Yisrael Neged Ahar. An Achdus that just starts here is silly. It's not a real Achdus. An Achdus that comes, which comes from the Echad of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that's an Achdus which is Nifrad and then comes together. All of this, it says in Nusach Svard, Rosa de Echad, Kigavna. This all says in the Kigavna, which is not Nusach Svard, by the way. I don't think that the Arizal said Kigavna. I don't think anybody in history said Kigavna. I think it started with the Bazrit Shabagin said Kigavna, and it became part of the Nusach Sfard, the Raza de Echad. I don't think the Sfardim say that we would daven like the Eitu Tabizrach. I don't think they say Kagavli either. They do, it's the comes from the Mizrach Shirvagi. So the idea is that Echad, Pirud, Echad. So that was what was going on at Har Sinai. Shehu Yichud Kol HaKnesset Yisrael. That's how we brought the Torah from the heaven to the earth. That's what it all is. To take the echad of Lamala and bring it to echad Lamata. The Gemara says b'Shabbos nitna Torah. You remember the Gemara says in Shabbos Pevav, the Gemara talks about whether Mount Torah was on Hey Sivan or Vav Sivan or Zayin Sivan. The question in the Gemara, like how do you read the Psukim? When exactly did the actual Matan Torah take place? In other words, Hashem spoke to the people. Hashem Alekecha. So the Gemara says, anyway you learn, the Kula Alma b'Shabbos in the Torah. Anyway you learn, it was on Shabbos. That's for sure. It was on Shabbos. So if you would. Kiyoima the Kagarim, and he says, why did it have to be on Shabbos, Matan Torah? Because that's another factor of Echad. There's the Echad of Klal Yisrael being Ma'achid, which the only thing that's going to give them to Koach to do that is the Koach of Shabbos. Why? Because Shabbos comes after the Sheish Yisrei Breishis, and what we learned from the beginning of the Sefer Kedusha Shabbos is that the whole point of Shabbos is to tie together the week. As I always say, this idea of turning your back on the week is the wrong thing. It's embracing the week, tying it together, and then bringing it forward. The whole thing is to tie, now further period of tie, until you get to Shtei Shabbosos, and Shtei Shabbosos you have Mashiach, you have the ultimate Hashras HaShechina. That's Hashras HaShechina. Mashiach is Hashras HaShechina. So the Yom of the Kagarim, Mount Torah, had to be on Shabbos because Shabbos created the energy, and Jews created with that energy the Achdus of Mount Torah and the Shechina. Yom of the Kagarim Liskalos Kedushos Halalu Bilvavos B'nei Yisrael Oz Mount Torah. Now, this is where the fun begins. The Zorach Miseir Lamai. So before Hashem came to Har Sinai to give the Torah, where was he? Kaviyachol. Where was the Shlit'a? Har Sinai. Where's that? When the tour guides don't show up, we're all mixed up. Where's Har Sinai?
It's not Armageddon, is it?
It's in the south,
South of Jordan. Okay. Meaning, Zorach Miser Lamai. So the Shechina came from Har Esav, which was west. East, rather. Zorach Miser Lamai. Gemara asks, famously, Chazal asks, what was the Shechina doing with Esav? Also, Merivo's Kodesh, what was he doing by Esav? So the Gemara says that he went around to all the nations of the world, asked them if they wanted the Torah. Okay, that's the medrash we learned until now. Zorach Miser Lamai, Esav, the makam of Esav, the energy of Esav, who Klipa Sakas, V'haretzicha. This is the Klipa, let's be medayik. The Klipa of Kas and Retzicha, murder, Shekolat Sherish Hara Bezeh, and that's where all of the energy of evil begins. Har Seir, Shemimenu, Harashis Goyim Amalek. From there came out Amalek, which is the Rashis Goyim, and Amalek, nothing worse than Amalek. Shehu Sherish Hara Da'aku. Now, the simple shot here is that Seir was over there and Har Sinai is over here. Like, you can't have Achdus and Seir. They had to find a Makam which was away from Seir. But the Diuk Hadavar is Klipas Hakas. What's a Klipa? Let's just understand for a moment. What's a Klipa?
A shell.
A shell. So a shell's a good thing or a bad thing?
Depends.
What?
Usually throw it away.
What?
Throw away the shell.
Throw away the shell. Choke on the shell. The shell is bitter.
This also protects them.
Without the shell, you don't have a pair. Hashem made shells. So the klipa in the bushel, which is a bushel, Klipa is a bushel. A Klipa of a pri is the protective device somehow. They even say, which I'm always bitarer from, that I don't know if it's true, but I'm always bitarer from anyway, that the Iker vitamins of the orange are in the shell, in the white part of the inside of the peel. So that's what my mother told me. They used to peel off, all those white parts. So that's the vitamin C. So the Klipa is interesting, like the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu made the Bria. The Klipa is mitzad echad, you throw it away, as you say. Mitzad sheni, it's protecting the pri. And Limos HaMashiach hu Klipas HaKadosh. As I'll say, that the Klipa becomes part of the Kedusha, there won't be a Klipa. So there's Klipas, there's different kinds of Klipas. You can become an expert on Klipas. There's the Klipas Loiga. The Balatanya speaks about this in the Ba'arichas. Klipas Loiga. There's the Shalosh Klipas Hatzmeyos. The Klipas Loiga is those white things in the orange that I used to peel off. That's the Klipas Loiga, meaning it gets its Yanika from the Klipa, and it gets its Yanika both from the Klipa and from the Kedusha. And then there's 3 layers of Klipa, Shalosh Klipas Hatzmeyos. Alzewi daber shmar esrei aker ushaber usmagir. That's talking about the shalosh klipas hatzmeyos. Aker ushaber usmagir. Each one requires a different thing to break through. But the klipa to itself has, especially the klipas noga, has an energy in it which can be good. So now, what do you do with Esav? What do you do with Har Sinai? What do you do with the klipa, which is all full of kas and ritzicha and Amalek, and more importantly, the question of what do you do with it? Like, how in the world is that protecting the Kedusha B'frei? How could this Klipa, he calls it a Klipa, Klipas HaKas v'Ritzicha, by the way, in Zohar, Esav was the Klipa of Kas and Ritzicha. Amalek was a Klipa, it wasn't the same Klipa, it was a Klipa, there's Shalosh Klipas Hatzmeyos, it was a Klipa of Chutzpah in the Zohar. And what did Amalek do? Let's just get it clear. So he attacked Klal Yisrael from behind. So Rashi brings, the Gemara asks, how did Amalek attack Klal Yisrael from behind? Klal Yisrael was protected by the Adon. The answer is what? David Dan, Shepalta bin Adon. You got Dan. Whoa. So here's our Dan again. Dan that embraced the Pesel Micha, and since they embraced the Pesel Micha, they were niflat mina Adon, and were upset with Amalek for attacking Dan. So are you visualizing like me the levels of Klipa that are going on? What's going on here is you have Amalek on the outside, Klal Yisrael inside the Adon, and this Dan is a buffer zone, sort of, and we hate Amalek for attacking Dan. But Dan is like this Klipa, which is Chelik min HaKodesh, Chelik min HaChol, which Yaakov Avinu said, maybe this is Mashiach, because Mashiach has to be so artsy.
Is Rav Dessler learning differently? Because he seems to say that those who weren't Zoicha, even though they're physically Tocha, they didn't have the Shmira, and done as the Ma'asef, that
Rav Dessler, I'm quoting Rav Dessler about. I think I'm quoting Rav Dessler, that Dan became the Ma'asef L'chol HaMachnos, which is a job that you can only do min hachutz. Look, we're throwing a lot of things out here, and let's have it together. I don't want to. Let's give me a second. Meaning, like we know this that Mashiach has to somehow come min hachutz. If you have messianic ambitions, don't get too involved on the inside, because it has to be min hachutz. The Mashiach, which Yaakov Avinu foresaw, Yeshuascha Kivisi Hashem, is a very dangerous place, because it's the place which is chutz min ha'anan, so you're not in the neighborhood, and you're very close in being attacked by Amalek, and even grabbing some Pesel Micha on the one hand, and on the other hand, there's this kind of schizophrenic mitzias of grabbing the Pesel Micha and being Ma'asef L'chol HaMachalos, which means what? Picking up the pieces of Klal Yisrael as they're walking inside the Yonah. What are these pieces? What are these pieces? This was a tremendous culture trauma for the Jewish people, who were an assimilated people. It's the culture of Mitzrayim, walking in the unknown now, and Shevet Dan, Pesel Micha, which is completely confusing, and Amalek, which is on the outside. So when you look at the infographic of Klal Yisrael at that time, and it's even deeper when you think about how the Shvatim were Saviv La'arai after the Mishkan. This was an amazing thing, but this done is in this not a gray area, but a
Transition zone.
it's not even transition. It's like combined as a dualistic place where Shevet Dan is. So do we like them? We don't like them. It becomes Rabbeinu Tam. So and you look. Reb Tzadok's going to explain later. Another couple of paragraphs that if you look at the Birchas Yaakov to Dan, it's almost the same bracha as Yehuda. A lion. So he says here, let's go a little further. So when we're talking about HaKadosh Baruch Hu came from Har Seir, the Shechina moved from Har Seir to Har Sinai. So this is the visual that we have to have, coming from the Klipa of Ritzicha. How is Ritzicha, how is Ritzicha and Kas going to be a good thing for Klal Yisrael? How's that going to be a shiur for Klal Yisrael?
It protects us from Amalek.
What was Shaul's Avera? Why didn't you kill all the Amalek people?
Nice.
Because I'm a Jew. Kill people? Well, then you can't be a Melech. So what? David HaMelech was a bad man? Was he a Rotzeach? There's a Klipa here. And there's this is so delicate. It's not saying to Shaul you should be Amalek and be a Rotzeach, but a bissel davon uplearning. A little bit you have to take from this Amalek to kill them. This is, by the way, the side of Yaakov and Lavan. The Bali Musar says if it's just Musar, I don't mean, in other words, without being Megalo side, that Yaakov understood when you're with Lavan, you have to be a bit Lavandik. That's what the Bali Musar say. But there's a deeper part to this. I mean, that is a deep thing, because it's not just you have to be that way, like when you're in Robi, like the Robas, or because that's not really true. But what it is that if we're working now in the Klipa, to work in the Klipa.
Is that Garti?
Im Lavan Garti. So Garti, Taryag. So
Why is it Klipa as opposed to the Klipa is the external part of it for us, or for a fruit, right? It's the part that's different than the fruit. So if it's Klipas Esav, then it seems to be not Esav. Something. Why isn't it just Esav?
Esav is the Klipa.
Ikar. What is he Klipa of then? Like what is
Klal
Esav
Yisrael.
surrounding?
There's a Klal Yisrael. You see that because the whole Yaakov and Esav was who's the Klipa and who's the Iker.
Isn't that part of the Pshat of
Don't think, by the way, excuse me, don't think that it's not connected to Rameir Nacher, who says, Rimai Matzasi, Klipasa Zarakti. So he was somehow Bafkin in the Klipa, he took away the Klipa, but he did bring in to the picture, he did bring to the table Rameir, that he was Mataris Hasheretz, the Kufnun Drachim. He was Mataris Hasheretz, Mazeh. And we've spoken about it Barichas. Like, what is the Mataris Hasheretz? Because Rameir was dealing in the Klipa side of it. Klipa says Arakti. I talk through away the Klipa, but there's something there that I'm Mataris Hasheretz, the Kufnun Drachim. And he became, by the way, Rameir became a big Kiruv man. Remeir, Hadi Beryoni, Shuvisa de Remeir, if you read through the history of that period, Remeir was the one who started off hating them, but he became one of the rabbis of the Beryonim, which were very rough guys at that time. So he became, this is not different than the fact that he was Mataris Hasheretz, and it's not different than the fact that he learned from Acher. It's all one Yesod of Klipa, Klipas Noiga, Sholish Klipas Hatzmeis, Klipas Noiga, Kedusha. And where are you these Gedolim? Where are they standing in the middle?
So that in Parshat Yaakov is grabbing the heel of Esav. It's meaning this is part of my avoda. There's an avoda that has to be done here on this spot. It's not just trying to wrestle him out so I can be on top. There's an avoda happening. No?
Yeah. I would go further. The whole fight with the Malach.
Yeah, Yaakov became part of it.
He became the message of the fight with the Malach. What's the fight? Kill him. What's the fight with the Malach? The fight with the Malach is the struggle of the Klipa. And Yaakov was Tzolei al Yerecha. You can't win a fight in the dirt without getting in the mud without getting dirty. So it's a very difficult. To some extent, if we went into it, this was probably a lemaisa machlokes between the Vilna Gaon and the Melatanya. This was, the whole idea of. But let's just say this. I can't get involved with that. But let's just say this: that Malchus is that you're bringing it all together. That's the whole point. Let's remember this: tying it all together. After all of this period, HaKadosh Baruch Hu's world is much more complex than anything you can see under a microscope. That's complex. HaKadosh Baruch Hu's, what you can't see is even more complex because the Kochos HaTuba, the Kochos HaTara, and the Kedusha, and Mikva, and Elohim HaCherim, it's a very complicated thing until you get to Mashiach. And Tabim Tia Yem Hashem Elokecha. And on that day it comes out Hashem Echad U'Shmo Echad. Hashem Echad U'Shmo Echad. That there's a complete achdus where all of this stuff can be brought together. We're not holding yet Mashiach. I mean, at least in my head, I don't understand it completely, but I think that this. So he says here, Yadua, B'tzayir Nishtala Chutz L'Machane Yisrael. B'tzayir. Who is in the Machane, who's out of the Machane Yisrael? So if you're part of the Echad, you're in the Machane Yisrael. If you're outside of the Echad, you're not part of it. So B'tzayra said Lashon Hara, B'tzi Shemra, made Pirud, you're out of the Machane Yisrael. We need to learn next time the story of the Shtei B'tzayroyim, Shayachutz L'Machane, which the Shari'or says refers to Yeshu HaNoitzri and Muhammad. I just want you to come next time. Shtei B'tzayroyim Shayachutz L'Machane. He works with Gematrias even. Chutz L'Machane, this was outside of the Machane Yisrael. There's this Klipa, which is a machlokes Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam and the Rambam. Like, how do you approach this Klipa? And we don't. If we're in the inside, or if we're lucky enough to be in the inside, we don't. Machane done embraces over and over again the Klipa. We have to understand how that configures with Midas Adid, Kol Omer Dad Didi, Shevet Dan. But there's this embracing of the Klipa.
Avram had the Klipa of Yishmael and Yitzchak, but Yaakov was also Shlit'a.
There was no Klipa in his sons.
So
Meaning that was the Machane Yisrael. Uncle Asa was on the outside. In other words, what Yaakov Avinu did was the bearer, Yaakov Chevel Nachalasei, was the bearer of the inside, the nucleus of this Klal Yisrael, of the Echad. And now what he did was Mitasei Shlema, and there's a different approach now to the Klipa. There's an approach of Yosef, different approach, but it's the inside and the outside, as opposed to a mix-up in the inside itself. So that was what Yaakov Avinu actually accomplished. So that's the Mitzayra. We need to go to this Mitzayra. Keinu Roy Lias Machne Yisrael. Ukamoi Bnei Dan, says Reb Tzadok, and this is just like the Bnei Dan Shepoltan Ha'anan. So the Bnei Dan similarly were thrown out of the Anan. It's not that they didn't go into the Anan, by the way. They were in the Anan, but Poltan Ha'anan, the Anan spit them out. And what was the point? The Gemara says before, because they had the Pesel Micha. They embraced the Pesel Micha. It's kilo like a branch of Klal Yisrael that held of Moshe. Kizah Moshe Ish Moshe Einenu, he's not here. We're going to do something else. Alternative Judaism. To do something else. The Isa, and the Gemara says in the Dharam, let's leave with this. Nasan l'chashayim sham leiv roiges. The Gemara says a story that in the Dharam Chaf Beis, that Ula is an Amora. Ula was in the time of Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish. So that was a period of returning to Eretz Yisrael after the Korban Bayis Sheni. Everyone went to Bavel or wherever they went, mostly Bavel. And then Rabbi Yochanan, when things cleared up a little bit, the air cleared here in Eretz Yisrael from the Romans, and also Rabbi Yochanan opened a yeshiva, and it became the most popular yeshiva in the world. Rabbi Yochanan opened in Tveria, and people started coming from all over the world, from Bavel and other places to come learn with Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan also, grabbing a Reish Lakish, was also being Malin and Tzotza. So Rabbi Yochanan was he said to the people as they crossed the river into Eretz Yisrael, forget about the whole Torah's Bavel. This is something new here. This is something new. So as Gedolim, so the Gemara speaks a lot of times about Allah Arim mi Bavel, the Aliyah of the Gedolim from Bavel that came to learn with Rabbi Yochanan was a Gadol Adar. Rabbi Yochanan. That's not Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. We're talking about a few generations later. Rabbi Yochanan, probably named after Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. And he probably came from the Chashmonai, but that's not who he was. It was Rabbi Yochanan. So the Gemara says that when Ula came, so he. Take one more minute. I have 5 minutes. Show you the Gemara. Gemara Nadorim. Gemara Nadorim, Chaf Beis tells a story. Ula b'miskei la'aretz Yisrael. Rashi says Kisha Allah la'aretz Yisrael. When Ula made his aliyah, Islavun Bahadei, to get through those mountains, he took with him 2 people. Islavun Bahadei trade B'nei Chazai, 2 B'nei Chazai. So what are B'nei Chazai? You know? Anshe Mechuzah. So Rashi tells us B'nei Chazai Yehudim Haya, they were Jews. He didn't take with him 2 guys, he took 2 B'nei Chazai. Kam Chad, on the way, Kam Chad Shachte L'Chavrei. They got into a fight, and one of his assistants killed the other assistant. Rough. Amr Le Ula, so he's the one, obviously the live one, said to Ula, Lav yoy avade. Is that okay? Was it okay that I killed, this guy? Amalek in? Okay. Ufrale beis Shlit'a and finish the job, like decapitate him. Those are Ula. Times. Amalek in. So Rashi says, yes, it's okay. V'nisyara, because Ula was afraid, loimer loy shaloyasa yafa. He didn't want to tell him Siddur Shade, Shebiyar Genu, because that'll be the next target. So, yeah, very good. Kill a boar. Probably based on Shlit'a, so Rashi says his kavanah was Shiyabus Behera. So Rashi here is being down look Havskos Ula the whole way through the Gemara, which is his Masar, that Ula did a what? Yeah, he did. He said he condoned the killing because to save his life. That was B'Goach Nefesh, and he told the parley based on Shlit'a to decapitate him against because he was suffering there. This guy, even after he killed him, so kill him Lagabri. She Yavush B'Beher will die faster. Okay. Ki also Lakabi to Rabbi Yochanan. Then he got to Yeshiva. He got to Rabbi Yochanan, meet the Rebbe. Amalek, and he said to Rabbi Yochanan, he was very troubled by the whole story of Ula. I mean, this must have been a huge trauma in his life. Amalek, you're making Aliyah, and you have this Maisa on the road. Amalek, he says, I feel like I have given chizuk. I feel like it was my words. I condoned and I gave chizuk to murder. Amalek Rabbi Yochanan. So Rabbi Yochanan, after hearing the story, he says, "Look, nafshecha yitzalta. You saved your soul. I mean, you saved yourself. You had to do it." So they're talking. So the Gemara, Kataba Rabbi Yochanan. So Rabbi Yochanan is reflecting on the story that he just heard from Ula. And the whole thing is like a teba to him. Kataba Rabbi Yochanan. The Torah says in Chumash, Nosad Hashem l'cha sham leiv ragos, that the curse of the Toichacha is that if you don't do the Ratzon Hashem, you go to Golus, and there you will have a leiv ragos. Will be a farbissiner people, like a irritated and angry and killer. That's what's going to happen in Bavel. But Rabbi Yochanan said that you're coming to Eretz Yisrael. You're in Eretz Yisrael. So what's the pshat? V'nosan Hashem l'chasham leiv ragos. Because we all know, we live here, that Eretz Yisrael is very calm. And nobody ever gets angry or says anything bad about another person. And there's no politics. So Rabbi Yochanan had a pella, like he didn't understand. Rabbi Yochanan was always very, very pushing Eretz Yisrael, the beauty of Eretz Yisrael. And the Chsard of Golos, that was Rabbi Yochanan's Shita throughout Shas, even in Halacha. So he says, I can't deal with the story because v'nas halacha shab leiv ragos. The Bavel ksiv. Ula, so Ula said to the Rabbi Yochanan, he shied to the time where the place where this story took place, like have aver lad Yardana. We didn't pass the Yarden yet. So because we were just outside of Eretz Yisrael, it was still possible for there to be a leiv ragos. That's the end of the Gemara. So Tzadok says one line. Yarden yored midan. That the Yarden, he didn't say we didn't come into Eretz Yisrael. Like Avar Yardana, which of course is the Gvul of Eretz Yisrael, but like Avar Yardana, meaning that so Yarden yored midan ve'isa v'nasan l'cha sham leiv ragos akati loy avri Yardana. We'll get to the Vikibalti in a second, but what was happening over here, the way Reb Tzadok is understanding this Gemara, is that Ula was describing to Rabbi Yochanan what's going on in the Klipa. There's Eretz Yisrael, and there's what's going on in the Klipa. And the Klipa, Daika, is marked by the Yarden, Yorad Dan. Yarden. The Yarden, as I explained a couple of days ago, the Yarden is named after Shevet Dan. It's named after Shevet Dan in the sense that the waterways of Eretz Yisrael came from Dan. Everything came from Har Hermon, went to Tel Dan, which was, we learned in Tanakh, Leshem, Har Ephraim, Dan, Tel Dan, that's where and there stood the Pesel Micha. And by the way, it's a makom of Avodah Zarah, Ad Hayom Hazeh. They have archaeological, you could go there. It's fascinating to go there and see the different Avodah Zarahs that they excavated at that particular place, because that is the makar of the mayim for the banyas, which goes, pamayas as the Gemara calls it, which goes into the Dan, and goes to the Kinneret and goes to all the way through Eretz Yisrael. This is our waterway. This is Lahavdil Ar Nile. The Yarden and the Kinneret. That's the waterway to Eretz Yisrael. There's no other water in Eretz Yisrael. That's the water. So the Pesel Micha up on top and Dan was on top. So what Ula was describing was that like Avar Yardana, we were still in the Klipa when this story happened. When this story happened, and it happened, it is that in the Klipa is even more intense than in Bavel. And Dan is Mamasham the Kavul. So again, you have, just like you have this choreography of the Jews in the Anon, the Jews out of the Anon, and Amalek behind them, you have the same situation with Eretz Yisrael, the Yarden, and then Aver Yarden, where the situation is even, you're in a very, very strong Klipa, but a holy Klipa, somehow. And then all of the wars that took place right before coming into Eretz Yisrael. So what Ula described to Rabbi Yochanan is, don't worry about Eretz Yisrael. Rabbi Yochanan's kasha was like, that Eretz Yisrael should be this kind of Klipa. He said, no, it wasn't in Eretz Yisrael. We weren't yet in the Anon. We were right outside of the Anon, and outside of the Anon is the place of Dan. Adayin loy avri Yardana. We didn't cross the Yarden. Okay, we'll pick that up.